Hello, people of the internet. Ian Altosaar Freedom Astrology once again here doing another video. Just checking my mic to see if everything is working. Should be good. And we're going to jump in and continue our, let's say, relationship karma video. We're going to be talking about the conjunctions with the nodes, the lunar nodes, the south node, north node. I'm not going to discuss a lot of the actual technique that is in the first video. I'm going to put the link of the first video down below. Go and check that out, where I kind of discuss the technique itself more thoroughly. And let's jump in and discuss a little bit about the rest of the planets in conjunction with the lunar nodes, as well as the ascendant, because we haven't really touched the ascendant. Last time we kind of cut off from the Saturn Jupiter place, and let's go in and let's do Jupiter and Saturn, and then look at the ascendant as well. And I'll also briefly mention the outer planets as well here in this video. So part 2, let's do it, guys. Let's jump in. So we are looking for, during this, or in this technique, or within this technique, we're looking for two conjunctions between two people, where one of the participants has their north node or south node conjunct the other person's planets. Now, in this case, we have, we can see here in this example, we have north node conjunct Jupiter. And what does that actually mean? Now, if you go look at the last video, north node is, we mostly want the north node conjunction because it's what we will get more and more of. And this is also very good with when we're talking about Jupiter. Now we don't want, when we get to Saturn, obviously we're going to dissect where we don't want north node so much. But with Jupiter especially, north node and Jupiter conjunction are really good. And one of the things that happens between these people, obviously the connection again is quite strong. At first, like the pull between these people, it's almost, when you see a person there, maybe it's at a party, maybe it's at a social event, working place. When you see that person, there's kind of like this instant connection, instant pull between or with that person. And Jupiter is a lot about how we kind of see the broader world, how we see broader life, what are our belief systems. And when the north node is conjunct, the other person kind of opens the horizons, opens the belief system. But there is a tendency there to also kind of see the world on a similar page. And remember, north node, those of you who saw the first video, when north node is conjunct, this is what we get more and more of. So the kind of world view or the belief system and kind of seeing the world on a broader scale kind of grows together and becomes, one more. And there's kind of, I would say, expansion of minds, expansion of worldview of both people, actually. Not only one. And actually, one really wants to get that worldview or belief system or understandings from the other person as well. Now, if we're talking about gender roles here, if, let's say, for example, there's a connection between a man and a woman, and it's in this case it's a romantic relationship, which it doesn't always have to be, but in this case let's talk a little bit about the romantic side of things as well. Then there is a tendency there. Children is a big possibility, and this is what I've seen. I have personal proof of this as well, and it's quite an intense one. It is a very strong indication. If, let's say, there's already a relationship and there's maybe it's been going on for a while, there is a tendency that these two people with the North Node Jupiter conjunction get or have a child together, and especially when the North Node of the man is with the Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter is a lot to do with children. We can say moon here a little bit as well, but Jupiter especially, Jupiter even more so, I would say, there is a tendency that, or a high probability that these two are going to have a child together. Obviously, if it's a professional relationship, no, you know, not so much, but a very, very important one to look out for, Jupiter North Node conjunction. Common beliefs, I think it's seeing, like, even seeing the future, because Jupiter is kind of like looking forward, looking, you know, into the future as well. So it's a lot to do with like seeing the future, having kind of similar goals for the future. And this is one of the, you know, I think one of the positive, let's say, conjunctions for a long-term relationships. Obviously, there needs to be other stuff involved there, but it's already a good indication. Let's put it that way, because Jupiter is usually very strong. You know, abundance and again, let's talk a little bit about the kind of like the luck side and the abundance side of Jupiter as well, because this is also what will come to this person's life with, you know, Jupiter, abundance, luck, expansion of worldview. We already said that, but all of these things, they will get more and more into their relationship and into their lives as well, if they stay together. And that kind of conjunction already is a good indication that they might. Now let's put Jupiter with the opposite side of the South Node now. South Node Jupiter conjunction. Remember from the first video, wherever that conjunction is, the initial connection is still very strong and the pull is very strong. And initially, it seems like everything I just said, you know, the worldview and the kind of similar understandings are there, and, you know, luck and abundance is there more and more. But with the South Node, it's always like it's been done before. It's been lived before between the two of you. So it will start to get less and less. You know, maybe the views won't, you know, match so well together. Maybe the views will be, you know, one starts to believe one thing, you know, the other starts to believe the other thing. It doesn't really match anymore as time goes on and on and on, and that starts happening more and more. Now with Jupiter. It doesn't mean immediately that the relationship is going to break, but, you know, if that, you know, goes on for a long time, and, you know, people have different ideas and plans for the future, and they see the world really differently, you know, in the end that can, you know, break off as well. But initially, again, a very, very strong connection, because, you know, karmically, you know, past lives, you've had past lives. There's a high probability, although very hard to prove in this material world, but high probability that you have had past lives together, even have had children together, and yeah. So yeah, everything with Jupiter starts to get less and less with the South Node conjunction as the relationship progresses. So if you see you and your spouse, or you and, you know, whoever that relationship partner is there, if you see that conjunction, initially very pleasant. As time goes on, less and less of those Jupiterian awesome abundance luck things as well. Yeah. And even we can say less and less of that expansiveness of the Jupiter, because Jupiter expands, and you know, initially when you come together, it kind of expands the both of you. But then as the time moves on, it becomes evident, you know, maybe in this lifetime that kind of it's, you know, because it's been done before, that the expansion starts to contract a little bit as well there. Now, we did Jupiter. Let's go on to Saturn. Let's take Saturn. Where's my Saturn? I think this is the Saturn. There is the Saturn example. Now again, we have the north node of one person conjunct the north Saturn of the other one. Now let's start with the north node, because in this case with the Saturn, it's definitely, maybe not the most pleasant one. It depends a little bit on what type of relationship this is, because if we're talking about a professional relationship, this can be actually good, because yes, at first a lot of duties, a lot of responsibilities, which Saturn, even blockages, hard work together. But as time goes on, more and more on that comes, and Saturn is also high positions in society, and kind of achieving those high positions slowly. And this can also mean that there is a, let's say, tendency, a probability that you will do that thanks to that Saturn, or that person will help you achieve those positions because you're together, and you will get more and more of that Saturn, or they will achieve those positions, and then you will get to live out those through them as well. The negative side here is obviously the kind of difficult part of Saturn, which is problems, blockages, hard work. It takes a lot of time. Saturn is kind of, it tests constantly. So you will get constantly these tests into the relationships as well. Be it a professional, be it a romantic relationship. It's duties, it's a lot of responsibilities, and that can weigh on you. And Saturn, what I've noticed with hard Saturn transits hitting your personal chart, it's kind of very much weighs on the person when it's the more exact it is. And then Synastry, it can also start weighing on the other person as well, or start weighing, and the relationship can feel like the weight, so there is a tendency there. And Saturn is kind of, Saturn itself is kind of less and less, or very minimalistic, you things minimally with minimal effort. So when North Node is conjunct, you will get more and more. You will constantly get more and more of less and less of it, and it can at times mean even some sort of, it depends a little bit where the Saturn is house-wise in this kind of placements as well. If it's in a financial house, it can mean finances. Wherever it is, you can have less and less, or kind of problems, issues there, even with finances, even with some things. So it can cause some problems, certainly, between relationship. But as time goes on, although the some things will get less and less, those positions and achievements will be still there if the efforts are put in with Saturn. If Saturn always needs efforts, with North Node, there's almost no escape from those. It's kind of, if that meeting happens, and then the relationship builds, it's almost very hard to get away from it. And this is what I'm saying to you. But now let's put it. I also wrote down in my notes, like the relationship itself can seem like a lot of work, and the relationship itself can become work. Seem gray, mundane, very very practical, very kind of earthly, frugal. These types of Saturnian things. Now, what if we put the Saturn? Now we talked about the Saturn North Node conjunction here. What if we put Saturn with the South Node on the opposite side? It's always a little bit, it's the first, when first coming together. Again, the intensity is there. even with Saturn, I think the intensity can be a little bit less. It's just Saturn. But it does feel karmic, because Saturn is a very, very karmic planet as well. And remember, South Node is what we've done together in previous lifetimes. And now, now Saturn with South Node conjunction means that you will get less and less of those duties, responsibilities with that person, because you have already lived through those during previous lifetimes. So the meeting comes together. Maybe some of those patterns, those karmic patterns, are triggered again, and you go through this kind of duties, responsibilities, blockages thing with the person. But then as time goes on, you will start to get less and less blockages, less and less work, less and less kind of responsibilities, duties. And this can actually be a good thing, kind of ease off that pressure, ease off that kind of duties and hard things and just constant work and mundaneness and grayness and practicality only. And that gets less and less. So don't be alarmed if you have like South Node conjunct with someone's Saturn, or your Saturn is maybe conjunct somebody else's South Node. So we can talk about a lot of karma there between the two of you, a lot of duties, responsibilities in previous lifetimes, but generally in this lifetime can be even good. So let's move on now to the ascendant. Now the ascendant, guys, is an interesting one. Let me pull the right one. Here is the right one. So the ascendant conjunct the North Node or South Node in Synastry. This is, I think, one of the, if you want to talk about like the strength of these, we're getting really into the thick of it, into the meat of it right now. And the ascendant with either the South Node or the North Node. In this example, I have the North Node, but I will also touch upon the South Node conjunct the Ascendant. Now, this is, in the sake of clarity, let's start with the North Node. North Node, like we have in the example here, one person's North Node conjunct the other person's Ascendant. Very kind of instant knowing that you know the person, very instant attraction, instant kind of pull towards the person. It doesn't always have to be kind of sexual, romantic attraction, but there's this strong pull towards the other person, strong connection, and very, very strong indication, especially with the North Node or Rahu, that, there's at least something here for the two of you during this lifetime to do together, be it romantic or, something else, but a very, very strong indication. And it's almost like, so the pull can be so strong, and even when there are problems in the relationships or kind of quarrels or fights in the relationships, even then the kind of person with the North Node conjunct the other person's Ascendant really still wants to be very, very connected to the other person. So it's really even hard to let go of that person. And I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying that it, like, even during fighting, during difficult times in relationships, it's even when you're there in kind of like that last place of like, do I want to stay here, or do I want to break it off, or what do I want to do? Like when the Ascendant or the North Node is conjunct the Ascendant, the answer will most likely be, I want to still be here. That's so strong. The connection is quite intense. And you're also, the North Node person will be very much, it doesn't mean that the other person won't be pulled towards you, but let's say the North Node person will always be more depending on other factors in the chart, but in this case we'll be more attracted to the person's, you know, life path, how they are, what they represent as a person. They kind of want more of it, and they want that life path that like be with them on that same path that they're on. It intrigues them, you know. There's so much to learn from that person. This is also important because there's so much here, because North Node is still those spaces, what we or things or areas or places we came here to learn about and to master. And now this here is this person who's living it, who's living kind of that area, who's living that life, who's living that life path. And now you, as the masterer of that area, can really, you know, intimately, quickly learn from that person, to kind of learn to channel that energy that they're living with, and to practice it in your life as well. So very strong connection there. Now the other side, let's go on to the other side, with the South Node conjunct the Ascendant. So let's take the other side of this and take the South Node and put it with the Ascendant. Now again, instant, you know, pull, very strong pull towards this person initially. Can again feel like you know the person from previous lifetimes. This kind of can't really explain it with words, kind of feeling that, oh my god, oh, I know this person. It's like you know, it's like magic, you know, at times. But it's more, it's still how it's, again, I'm going to kind of repeat myself here, but it's really hard to prove, you know, that yeah, we've kind of known each other from past lifetimes, or you know, that this checks out, unless you're kind of like a past life regressional therapist. Probably then you can, you know, go back into those spaces and help people go back into the spaces. But this is what we have from astrology, and how we can kind of have indications that we might have spent these lifetimes together. And South Node conjunct the Ascendant is very much one of those, maybe even if we want to say the strongest, one of those configurations is astrology that gives us a high probability that has been the case. Now, interesting one here, because, you know, remember from the part one of the video, and I've constantly talked about, you know, North Node more and more, South Node less and less. And again, initially with this South Node and Ascendant conjunction, it's like you can't get enough of that person, their, you know, their life path, the way they do things generally, the way they live their life, the way they are as a human being, really intrigues you, really pulls you closer. But the problem is, you know, you've also, remember, South Node is what you have mastered, what you have lived, what you have already capacity at. You have already mastered it. And this is one of the reasons there's still a strong pull, a connection that holds the two of you together almost. But, you know, you're not meant to be so much living that person's, you know, ascendant, because you've done it already. So it's you know, in this life you actually need to go to the North Node more. And at times this can mean, you know, the relationship will be intense at first and then at the beginning, and then the connection gets less and less, unless, now this is important, unless there are other conjunctions in the chart playing out, obviously, that some North Node part of your North Node is connected to their personal plans. Again, this is, you know, also an indication, very important, guys, that you did something together in previous lifetime and you mastered it, but now there's still some karma to be resolved, something to do, something to create together in this lifetime as well. So South Node conjunct the ascendant of another person doesn't immediately mean that the relationship is going to break off. It rather means that the instant connection, it starts to get less and less, a little bit here and there, or some parts of that person will start to kind of, maybe the annoyance is a bit of a too dramatic word, but you're going to see that I'm not supposed to, master or learn about this so much, and I don't want to live so much like, they are living their life right now in this lifetime. I need to go towards my North Node and learn about that. And this is one of the reasons, why the North Node ascendant conjunction is, in my opinion, one of the strongest, because it's like you're constantly getting that North Node of what you came here to learn and to master during this life. So this is quite important, I would say, to understand in Synastry especially, and to learn to navigate these matters. Now, I think this is most of what I wanted to say. And also, with the South Node ascendant conjunction, it's still very, very hard to let go of that person, because it's so familiar, it's so intense, it's so, recognizable. Yeah, in some cases, obviously, you need to let go, but it's very, very hard to let go of that person. Okay, so I think we got the basic, most important juice and meat of this ascendant North Node, South Node conjunction. Let's talk a little bit about two things. Let's talk a little bit about the nodal conjunction. The nodal conjunction usually means that you are born quite closely. Obviously, there are other indications in the chart that are conjunct, make aspects with each other that are kind of, familiar. But this is a very, very interesting one. Let me just kind of rephrase everything, or start to go into it. Having lived this with a person quite intensely personally, and having witnessed one of my clients, one of my people who I work with the same position, it's also, again, when these people come together, and I hope I showed you this. So North Node and South Node conjunction. The closer it is, especially with the nodes, the closer it is, that the more intense it is. Because remember, nodal nodes are points in the sky. They don't really have orbs like planets. So the closer the nodal conjunctions with other nodes is, that the stronger it is. And again, it can be quite intense, or even strangely enough, at the beginning it can be quite there can be recognizable, there can be attraction, there can be a certain kind of connection there, but the intensity and kind of not being able to let go of one another can come later on. But what I've seen with this and experienced myself and witnessed very, very closely is, at times these relationships can almost turn stale, almost turn into, like, very quickly into like an old married couple kind of thing, kind of nagging on one another. The relationship seems kind of like stale or kind of boring even. And there are indications here that this indicates that the two people have lived already a romantic relationship in previous lifetimes. So there is something to do here in this lifetime to live it, to kind of teach and learn, but then kind of go separate ways and kind of get the learning, get the growth, get the understanding from another person. And I think it's one of those configurations that it's really hard to kind of dissect, because it doesn't immediately mean that all these types of relationships where there is a nodal conjunction that they will break off, depending on other factors. You might have other planets in those signs, then they're conjunct again, something for you to learn together during this lifetime. So remember that, guys. No configuration, no kind of conjunction, opposition, square, whatever, doesn't immediately mean that you're going to be breaking off or the relationship is going to end. This is what I mean. But there is a tendency here with this position, like the relationship getting too familiar, I think, is the gist of this. And like I know this already. I kind of, it's kind of boring. And then, you know, other stuff can come up. You know, you start, how do you not, how does it not get boring? You know, you start to do things not good in the relationship to kind of spice things up. Anyway, it can turn into a bit of a nagging kind of old married couple type of relationship. This is one of the things, because you have experienced this before. So I think this is one of the main gists of this, what I wanted to give you with this mini series with nodal conjunctions. I want to mention briefly outer planet conjunctions. Now, this technique, as far as I know of the history, was developed when they didn't really know yet of the existence of outer planets. So they didn't really, you know, put things in. But I personally started doing observations. I started looking at, you know, why not? You know, especially looking at this example, North Node conjunct Pluto. Quite an intense attraction, you know, you can immediately see. And I do think there is validity there, that the nodal conjunctions with the outer planets play out similarly, like the technique I said. You know, with the North Node, you will start getting more and more of that Pluto. With the South Node, you start getting less and less of that Pluto. Or with Neptune or with Uranus, the same way. And with Pluto, we're talking about, you know, sexual attraction. We're talking about, you know, deep relationship. We're talking about power, control, even, you know, at times, you know, manipulative games, power control games within the relationship, or even, you know, achieving some powerful position thanks to that person. It's not all bad, or even financial rewards with Pluto. It doesn't always have to be bad with Pluto. With Uranus, it's you know, more of those sudden events, and, you know, like especially with the North Node, you find that person intriguing. They kind of excite you. They seem because Uranus is kind of quirky. It's unique. You know, you get the uniqueness and the quirkiness and the kind of weirdness of that person more and more with the North Node. With the South Node, you get it less and less. At first, they might seem very unique, very exciting. You know, they switch gears quickly here and there. Suddenly, out of the blue, they do something totally different, and that excites you. But then, as the time goes on, South Node, it kind of relaxes. But North Node, that keeps on going. With Neptune, you know, it's with Neptune, it's always kind of interesting. You either get like the kind of spiritual, creative, psychic side of the person, and kind of artistic side, and the kind of magical veil. Again, you know, North Node with the Neptune, the person can seem very, you know, magical to you, even like secretive to you, and that kind of excites you. And vice versa, obviously. With the South Node Neptune, I think it's a very kind of like a spiritual component, had a pretty spiritual to service type life together in previous lifetimes. Get less and less of that spiritual hope, and you know, Neptune can deceive and can pull veils on, and can manipulate a little bit, you know, in the very indirect ways, kind of do secretive stuff. So with the South Node, you get less and less of that, and with the North Node, it can get you can get more and more of that. Obviously, it always depends on where the human being is from their consciousness perspective. Are they developed already? Do they have kind of, some sort of spiritual practices? Are they doing some sort of creative pursuits? Very much Neptune, all arts and music and painting and stuff like that. This is all very Neptunian. And photography, doesn't always have to be painting. So hopefully this makes sense. Remember the gist, the meat of this with the North Node more and more and more. South Node, again, similar intense connection, but less and less as time goes on. And knowing this can, at times when you remember it and you can bring it to your relationship, be it professional, be it romantic, you can literally start to kind of push a little bit. Let's say you have Mercury there, and you can make time for each other to kind of communicate with each other. Like, let's talk, let's discuss, let's share intellectually. If you both know that you have this South Node, let's say with the Mercury, and there is a tendency that maybe the communication has kind of stopped between the two of you, then you can get it back bit by bit and a little bit. Obviously, it's never going to be with the South Node. It's never going to be like with the North Node. Always interesting conversations with two of you. Always wanting to have conversations. Always wanting to kind of intellectually talk to each other and share ideas and information. It will be less, definitely less than with the North Node. So hopefully this example helps you. Hopefully this kind of configuration or technique helps you. I think this is one of my favorite techniques and one of the ones that really has kind of stood the test of time and really, really has worked and super strongly. So I hope it works for you as well, guys. Thank you very much for listening, watching. See you again soon in the next videos.